Hello everyone, and welcome back to Gods and Myths of Northern Europe, Part 22. Today we are reading Reincarnation Among the Norse, Sifting Through the Evidence, by Bill Lindsay. It was written in February 12, 2006. Introduction. Germanic heathenry is known as a modern alternative religion, which stands in similar position that it espouses a variety of afterlives. Certainly by the end of the Viking Age, there were at least 4 afterlife concepts, which are documented in various manuscripts. There are several others which may have actually developed after the Scandinavians' conversion to Christianity. However, this article deals only with one specific form of afterlife, reincarnation. Reincarnation is very popular these days, probably because it adds symmetry and harmony to an otherwise confusing life. The current reduction in developing scientific fields has determined the dominant Christian concept of afterlife. In the idea of a complete transmigration of souls feels comfortable, and the idea of a complete of souls feels comfortable and can thrive in spite of scientific advances. At the present time, there are a large number of belief systems espousing a belief in reincarnation, most notably Wicca, which due to its nature comes in a variety of cultural flavors. The general modern belief, at least in the USA, states that after a person dies, his soul will be transformed to a holding area, where the soul awaits. Conception of a child. The soul is then injected into the fetus at some point prior to birth. This particular version of reincarnation owed its existence to the religions and worldviews of the Orient, but it has been modified significantly to that being reincarnated as an animal is generally considered a low probability. The American version differs from the Oriental forerunner in that there is more control placed in the hands of an individual. First, the modern soul, conceptually, is comprised of ego, subconscious, and a form of transpersonal self, so that when a person is reincarnated, or born again, the entire self is just as if he had never died. Some versions talk of a more advanced self, improved through experience, but the idea remains the same. Personality will be reborn in a cosmic game to gain more experience. Literary evidence. Review of the literary references to reincarnation come in essentially 2 flavors. 1. Direct references where it is explicitly stated that an individual is born again. 2. Indirect references where the belief in reincarnation is alluded to. Here we utilize Hollander's translation of the Eddas. There is no real reason for a choice for Hollander specifically other than his translations of the Eddas are the most readily available in the American English language. Case number 1. Translated line. Of Helgi and Savannah. It is said that they were born again. Related text. King Helgi was a mighty warrior. He fared to King Elimi and asked for the hand of his daughter. Helgi and Savannah swear oaths to each other, and their love was great. Savannah stayed at home with her father, but Helgi was in the wars. Yet was Savannah a Valkyrie as before? Heathen was at home with his father, King Hjordvarth, in Norway. One time Heathen was coming home alone from the forest on Yule Eve. He met a troll woman riding on a wolf, with snakes as reins. She asked his leave to keep company, but he would not. She said, That shalt thou rule when drinking from the hallowed cup. In the evening the vows were made. The sacrificial boar was led in. Men laid their hands on him and swore dear oaths as they drank from the hallowed cup. Heathen made a vow that he would have Savannah, Elimi's daughter. They made him beloved by Helgi, his brother. But he forthwith rued it so greatly that he hastened south on wild ways until he found his brother Helgi. Translated line, case 2. Helgi was the name of the king whose daughter was Sigrun. She became a Valkyrie and rode the air and over the sea. She was Savannah, born again. Case number 2. Translated line. Sigrun lived with a short while longer, for grief and sorrow. It was the belief in olden times that men were born again, but that is now called an old woman's superstition. Helgi and Sigrun are said to have been born again as Helgi and Kara, the daughter of Halfdan, as told in the Lay of Kara. She was a Valkyrie. Case number 4. Translated line. To him hardly Hogni answered, Hinder her not, hellward to fare. Whence back never she be born again. Wicked left she her mother's womb. To the world it was she but woe to bring, sadness and sorrow to sons of men. The archaeological record. Cases 1 through 3 use the Old Norse word Inderboren, and case number 4 uses Apteboren, and both words literally translate as born again, with the possibility of any other translation being highly improbable. The literary evidence here is very clear as to what was intended by the compilers of the poems. Supporting literary evidence is primarily in the form of anecdotal information which alludes to the possibility of an Old Norse doctrine of reincarnation. Case number 5. The following is from a translation of the Flatjarbok by Tervel Petri. It is told that once, when King Olaf the Saint was riding with his bodyguard, the elf of Gerstalder, one of his followers, questioned him, Tell me, Lord, were you buried here? The king answered, Never did my soul have two bodies, and it will never have. Neither now nor on the day of resurrection, and if I say anything else, then the common faith is not truly implanted in me. Then the courtier said, People have said that when you came to this place before, you exclaimed, Here we are, and here we go. The king answered, I never said that, and I never will. The king was deeply disturbed at heart. He pricked his horse and sped from this place as fast as he could. It was easy to see that Olaf wished to uproot and blot out his heretical superstition. There are a couple of other examples, such as the tale of Thorolf Twistfoot, which have been used by authors as support of the concept of reincarnation. Other examples. There is no other documentation to date, either outside historical records, Christian writings against heathen practice, such as sermons or church regulations, which would place an accepted doctrine of reincarnation in the pre-conversion era, exclusive of the writings regarding the heathen Germans, Vandals, Visigoths, Normans, Anglo-Saxons, etc. The only documents existing are mentioned above. By far, the archaeological record is more difficult to interpret than the literary records, especially if it comes down to what the people of the time actually believed. There is a fact often cited by those looking to find reincarnation. While this is true to a large degree, there are things which can be said about burial practice which can impact how the literary record is interpreted. The Germanic archaeological record. There is a consistency within burial practice which remained stable from the migration period to the point of conversion, 1000 CE. Corpses were outfitted to continue life within the grave mound. Objects common to daily life, like scissors, eating utensils, combs, drinking vessels, jars of food, pets, jewelry, money for spending, etc., are among the most common everyday items. Weapons for men and sewing kits were also common for women as well as men. Even though styles of the graves changed over relatively short periods of time and varied from region to region even within the same time frame, the existence of grave goods and the types of grave goods remains the same as one of the singular trademarks of the Germanic heathens' burial. Additionally, the Church of the late Viking Age frowned on the practice of grave goods and highly discouraged them prior to the conversion and by 200 years post-conversion. Burial was done under the strict eye of the Church. Because of the difference in osteology, it is usually fairly easy to discern the difference between Christian graves and heathen ones, except when the person buried was obviously of mixed belief. Styles of graves varied throughout the Viking Age significantly. Rudolf Simek in der Glav der German lists the following known grave styles: single grave, cremation and interment, mound graves, horse graves, wagon graves, ship graves. There were two types of funerary practice: cremation and interment. Interment remained the more important of the two, and generally, when an individual was cremated, the remains of or certain parts of the remains. There were recorded incidents of a body or bodies being set afire on a ship and set adrift. However, this happens to fall outside the general worldview, an anomaly as it were, and this type of burial is only recorded for the late Viking Age, which leaves it to subject much outside influence. The fact that these burials are recorded for men on campaign in foreign regions suggests that it probably should be handled separately, with investigation into the possibility of an outside or foreign influence, and possible rationale for need. Much has been written regarding the archaeological record, but the results, scanty as they may be, reveal the dead to be consistently outfitted for a continued life in the grave. Possible Baltic and Finno-Ugaric influence. There have been studies regarding the border zone regions of Sweden, particularly between the Sami and the Germanics. The difference noted are that in the pre-Christian era, the Sami, who regarded reincarnation as part of their worldview to some degree, buried the dead traditionally out in the wilderness, wrapped lightly in bark and covered with rocks to decay easily, but also to be protected from hungry scavengers. Grave goods in the few graves that have been recovered are essentially non-existent. Germanic graves are typically close to the community or within it, reflecting an ongoing ancestor veneration. Grave goods are common in these graves. It has also been noted that Sami graves within mixed communities show a degree of acceptance for the Germanic worldview on the part of the Sami, but Germanics buried with Sami produced grave goods as still interred in the typical Germanic manner. The religious practice underlying the burial practices of the Sami and the other Finno-Ugric people have been extensively surveyed by Bino Holmberg in his Finno-Ugric mythology, in his work summarized by F. Gunrad in Lurus Encyclopedia of Mythology. The soul is, however, indissolubly linked to the body, with which it forms an invisible whole. Having no independent existence, it dies with the body. That is why the Ingrians went to weep over the grave of the deceased, and placed offerings there during a period roughly equivalent to the time of the body's decomposition. Afterwards, the grave was no longer visited. They said, there is no longer anything left of the soul. For the Vogels, the heart and the lungs were the seat of the soul. Thus their warriors would eat the heart and the lungs of the vanquished in order to absorb their vital force, that is, their soul. Other tribes attributed an importance to the skeleton, the framework of the soul, as well as the body. The Lapps, for example, would avoid breaking and destroying the skeleton of a sacrificed animal, believing that the gods used it again to make a new animal. The belief that the soul lasts as long as the skeleton exists is also clear for the ceremonies of the Bears Festival, of which the Kalevala gives us a curious description. After the bear had been hunted and its flesh was eaten, then its bones were put in a tomb with skis, a knife, and the other objects. The slain animal was treated as a friend and asked to tell the other bears about all the honors men had paid. A form to it. Sorry about that one word, by the way. It was in the book, so forgive me. A form of reincarnation existed among these peoples, but only insofar that the basic components of life, the skeleton and the soul that was attached to it, were reused to build a new being of the same species. Presumably this included humans as well. The archaeological record is silent, then regarded any indicators of a belief in reincarnation or rebirth. This alone, however, cannot be regarded as either proof for or against such a belief. Corroborating evidence is necessary. Reincarnation as Christian heresy. The only true heretic according to the findings of the First Nicene Council in 385 CE is defined as follows. In the early church, heresies were sometimes determined by a selected council of bishops, or Ecumenical Council, I never heard that word before, such as the First Council of Nicaea. The Orthodox position was established at the council, and that all who failed to adhere to it therefore were considered heretics. So heathens in Germanic Northern Europe would not necessarily be regarded, at least by the Church, as heretics, but rather as pagans. However, it is clear that heathen belief was considered false and worthy of derision. Writings from the late heathen period in Anglo-Saxon England, 1014, by Wulfstan, Archbishop of York, is probably representative of the sentiment of Christians towards the remaining heathens in Northern Europe. In his sermon on false gods, he lists heathenry is promoted by the devil, idol worship is the devil's works, heathens are those who strayed from God, led by Satan. They worship the sun and moon as gods. They worship also fire, water, and earth. Heathens act out of the free will that God had given them. Heathens eventually took to worshiping giants and men of violence. Specifically mentions Saturn and Jove. Heathens, the Danish, love more the son of Jove, Tyr, who is called Thor, and who brings the only strife and contention. The Danes then fashioned a god out of Mercury, Odin, and made sacrifices to him. A lot of the Christians back then compared northern gods to Roman gods, so they often called them Roman names and stuff. All was taught to the heathens by the devil. Venus copulated with Jove and became a great goddess, probably Freya. Thereafter, the heathens devised other gods and goddesses, so therefore the devil was rightfully claimed their unrepentant souls. What is most interesting in telling it is that, although the prior existence of a soul to birth was declared heretical during the First Nicene Council of 385, and finalized at the Second Council of Constantinople in 553, there are no mentions of such a belief among heathens in the Germanic North. Anywhere in these documents, generated during the late heathen period. Not only the writing of the Heimskringla and some of the Eddic poems, that is. From the time that the Christians first entered the realm of the Germanic North, the time of the conversion, roughly 700 years later, Christians, often coming from the ranks of heathens converted, write anti-heathen sermons, letters to the Pope, canonical law, and even civil laws. Yet not once is there a mention of a blatant heretical belief in reincarnation. As stated above, the archaeological record reveals nothing. 700 years of simply missing something is highly improbable. Well, my throat is killing me, so I'm going to stop it right here, and I will continue whenever I can. I'm just kind of going through the works right now, so I will see you in the next video, and stay tuned.